2nd anniversary of the Republican status of Trinidad and Tobago. And it is entitled Collapsed National Institutions, Failed Political Leadership. It's time to evolve, time for the Second Republic. 42 years ago, Trinidad and Tobago became a republic. It was an important moment in our country's history. We had evolved from an independent nation 14 years before, on August 31st, 1962. However, our political independence could not be said to be complete, since our head of state was still the British monarch. The democracy promised by independence had not materialized. In 1970, just 8 short years after independence, tens of thousands of our citizens, mostly young people, expressed their frustration with a system that did not give them equal opportunity and which preserved the power, wealth, and privilege of a small class of elites. Power to the people was the demand. Even the government of Dr. Eric Williams recognized that systemic change was urgently needed. With respect to economic change, the government's third five-year development plan of 1968 to 73, prepared by some of this country's most illustrious economists and public servants, articulated the strategy of, quote, controlling the commanding heights of the economy, end quote. The 1970 revolution provided the impetus for the implementation of that strategy, with state involvement in the financial sector, National Commercial Bank, and energy sector, National Petroleum and Trinidad. The oil boom of the mid-1970s provided the stimulus for that strategy. Trinidad and Tobago was evolving. With respect to political change, the Williams government initiated a process of constitutional reform chaired by former Chief Justice Sir Hugh Wooding. Though the actual reforms to the Constitution did not reflect all the recommendations of the Wooding Commission, there were important changes. Firstly, we became a republic. Secondly, the President was given powers beyond the mere ceremonial to appoint the Chief Justice, the Service Commissions, the Elections and Boundaries Commission, among others. These powers had all previously been in the hands of the Prime Minister. Trinidad and Tobago had evolved. Today, 42 years later, we need to evolve once again. Why? Because the institutions established by the 1976 Republican Constitution are just not working. Certainly, the institutions are not working in the interest of the majority of citizens. The 1976 Republican Constitution has created a parliament that does not sufficiently enable citizens to have their views and concerns reflected in the laws passed by Parliament. MPs take a purely party position and many times go against the national interest. We have a judiciary in which the people have very little faith and confidence. A cabinet that makes decisions that are not transparent and which are seen to be in the interest of the party financiers and not the ordinary citizens. We have service commissions that are slow and inefficient, resulting in a system of public service that is unsatisfactory. At the same time, the criminal justice system has almost completely collapsed, as people can't get their matters heard in court for years, and many are suffering in jail on remand, waiting for a trial to start. Wealth, power, and privilege mean that the small class of elites benefit from the justice system, while the poor and powerless suffer injustice. Local government is not entrenched in the Constitution, and the regional and municipal corporations have little power and even less resources to meet the needs of burgesses. Our system of budgeting and the mismanagement of the country's resources have resulted in so many of our communities lacking the basic necessities of water, decent roads, proper community facilities. Our education and healthcare systems are still structured along colonial lines, so that the small class of elites get the best education and the best healthcare, while the majority catch real help. Discrimination and inequality are rampant, especially because of the economic policies practiced by successive governments from the 1980s to present, so that our society is more unequal in terms of wealth and income than it was 42 years ago. Today, our citizens understand that the First Republic just isn't working. The most recent poll, done just 3 weeks ago, gave the truth to our statement. Crime, 97% of citizens believe that this is a crisis or a very serious problem. The economy, 74% of citizens believe that it is a crisis or is a very serious problem. The majority, more than 50%, believe that they are worse off today than in September 2015. 90% of the population have no confidence in the judiciary. 87% have no confidence in the police service. Less than a third have confidence in our education. Less than a quarter have confidence in the healthcare system. And only 22% are confident in our financial system. In the face of this disastrous lack of confidence in our nation's institutions, and in the teeth of the decision by the Rowley PNM government to shut down the Petrogen refinery and send home all of its workers, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago are faced with a Prime Minister and a leader of the opposition who have turned their backs on and abandoned the project of nation building. The fact that their discourse is about Oreos and the N-word speaks to the absence of vision and philosophy by both Dr. Rowley and Mrs. Persad Bissessor. The founder of the PNM, Dr. Eric Williams, had many shortcomings, but he did have a vision of nationhood out of colonialism and into independence and to the First Republic. Likewise, the founder of the UNC, Mr. Basdio Panday, had many shortcomings, but he did have a vision of redressing many of the inequalities in the country and giving citizens more power. For example, the Equal Opportunity Act, the Freedom of Information Act, judicial reviews, the introduction of joint select committees of parliament, etc. The PNM of Dr. Rowley is not the PNM of Eric Williams. The PNM of Dr. Rowley is philosophically akin to the IMF and World Bank, which is about neoliberal policies that enrich the wealthy at the expense of everyone else. The PNM of Dr. Rowley is intent on protecting and giving more power to the small class of elites, the owners and managers of big capital, both foreign and local. Dr. Rowley trusts the Christian Moutes and Wilfred Espinays of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Solomons and McKinseys of the global corporate world to give him advice, not the Economic Development Advisory Board or the National Tripartite Advisory Council. The PNM of Dr. Rowley is not the defender of working people and cares not for the small Trinbagonian man and woman of African descent. The UNC of Mrs. Persad Bissessor has only one philosophy: win elections and use state power to entrench their family, friends, and financiers. The UNC of Mrs. Persad Bissessor also adopted the neoliberal paradigm, which supports the growing inequality in wealth and income in Trinidad and Tobago. But on top of this, they mismanaged the country's resources without a thought about the future. They were irresponsible in the extreme. And today they speak as if they had no responsibility for the country for 5+ years. They have lost their moral authority. Trinidad and Tobago has national institutions that have collapsed and a political leadership that has failed. This leadership failed because it has no vision. It failed because it adopted policies that are destroying the foundation of our nation, the foundation that the generation of Dr. Eric Williams established. That foundation was one where every creed and race should find an equal place, and where the material resources of the country shall subserve the common good. To emerge from this predicament in which we find ourselves, our country needs new, inspired, visionary, strong leadership. We require leadership that has a clear philosophy, a philosophy that restores a sense of values and purpose, a collective effort to get us back on track, to enable Trinidad and Tobago to evolve. In this moment of uncertainty, the MSJ offers the vision of the Second Republic, of reforms to our Constitution, of putting power in local government and communities, of changing the relations of economic power through the social solidarity economy, of challenging the status quo so that we can begin to end discrimination and inequality. Our vision is underpinned by the philosophy of social justice and equity. Trinidad and Tobago, on this, the 42nd anniversary of our Republican status, the MSJ says, it's once again time to evolve. It's time for the Second Republic. That's our statement on